2001: A Space Odyssey is a film that is brilliantly enigmatic, full of questions but not many answers. It keeps you thinking for days, weeks, even years after first viewing. It poses massive questions about technology, evolution, and of course it has one of the most discussed endings in all of film history, leaving much open to interpretation. Stanley Kubrick was a director that put thought into absolutely everything you can imagine in his films. His artistry and directorial aesthetic shaped the world of cinema, and 2001 was truly the dawn of a new generation of filmmaking and storytelling. One of the most notable aspects in the film is its use of music. A quote from Billboard.com reads, "Just as 2001 juxtaposes a distant past and future, the pieces Kubrick chose veered from knowingly traditional to harshly modernistic, and it was through this artistic decision that not only led to the resurgence of many of these classical pieces, but helped to define the vast, dark, and mysterious world that Kubrick so brilliantly created." The film begins with a grand opening known as the Dawn of Man sequence. It describes human beings' first interaction with technology and sets the stage for the story to follow in the film. This event is marked as the first step in mankind's evolutionary process. In the film, we see Earth millions of years in the past as an alien species makes first contact, using an item known as the monolith. The monolith is a theme used throughout the film to describe the advanced technology of this alien species. It's through this item that the hominids learn the ability to use tools and weaponry. The first piece we hear is Requiem for soprano, mezzo-soprano, two mixed choirs, and orchestra by Ligeti. The piece's atonality and atmospheric quality is immediately noticed by the audience and signifies a large change in the story, and is used throughout when the monoliths appear. Ligeti was a Hungarian composer that worked within the mid to late 20th century. Restricted by the authorities of communism in Hungary, Ligeti moved west so he could pursue his passion for avant-garde music. He dove into topics like micropolyphony, a polyphonic musical texture he developed which included different lines moving at various tempos and rhythms. This took the concept of clusters and added a sense of movement to it, and it made it seem like the music was rising to an infinite point. Two more of Ligeti's pieces were used in the film, Lux Eterna and Atmospheres, which also encompassed that dark, drone-like sound. This sound would not only inspire a new wave of avant-garde music, but would help to define the sound of the film and the darkness of space and what might lie beyond. The Atmosphere piece would also serve as the overture and intermission music. We don't hear any dialogue until 25 minutes into the movie, which leaves the beginning of the film very open for music and sound design. The music of Ligeti does a great job to create the atmosphere in the first act of the film. How do we describe the weightlessness of space, the what seems like infinite distance in any direction? For Kubrick, that was the blue Danube, or as it's also known, the Space Waltz by Johann Strauss II. Following the brilliant transition from the bone during the Dawn of Man sequence to the spaceship describing mankind's evolution and technology, we first witness space. A scene which surprisingly to this day still holds up. The music has a certain lightness to it and is both majestic and slightly quirky. The piece was actually first written in 1866. The first performance was considered a mild success, and Strauss himself complained about it, saying, "The devil take my waltz, my only regret is for the coda. I wish that had been a success." When the instrumental version premiered in the US in 1867 with a large amount of success, it set the stage for the future of the piece, which would be almost exclusively instrumental. One fun fact about the piece is it was written almost exactly 100 years before the release of the film. Once mankind finds the second monolith on the moon millions of years after the opening of the film, this signals the next step in mankind's evolution, thus causing this alien species to send a signal from Jupiter, sending mankind in that direction. This signals another big change in the film. This is the first time the crew have exited Earth's orbit, and seeing that it cuts ahead 18 months, it signifies the slow movement of time and space, and the sheer distances involved in space travel. The scene also has a certain sense of isolation, as the crew are cut off from the distractions of Earth. The piece of music used over this scene is the Gaian Ballet Suite from Armenian composer Arem Khachaturian. The ballet was written in 1939 and first titled Happiness, and the years following the release, the plot of the ballet was changed because the composer Khachaturian thought the word happiness was too romantic and didn't encompass the ballet's nationalist zeal that he was going for. The piece wasn't only used in 2001, but it was also quoted in 3 of James Horner's scores: Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, and Aliens. Similarly to the Blue Danube, it has a certain weightlessness to it, but approaches it in a less quirky way, and generally has more of a serious and majestic tone to it. There's many moments where Kubrick relies solely on sound design and dialogue to fill the scene. One thing about film music is it has the ability to easily sentimentalize a scene. Watch what happens when we try to put music on top of one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie.
Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
You can see it takes away that ambient silence and darkness that this scene encompasses. It's hard to think about 2001 without thinking about this next piece, and it's hard to think about this next piece without thinking about 2001. Thus Spoke Zarathurstra by Richard Strauss is used in the film to signify large leaps in human evolution, notably during the opening of the film, the hominid scene, the moon sequence, and the closing. With the regal brass, massive organ, and relatively simple but effective harmony, the opening fanfare announces the beginning of our story. During the finale of the film, it announces the ending of Bowman's life as a human and the start of his new life in a new form, and humanity's next chapter of evolution.